What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be continuing the weapon breakdowns for the Cold War weapons within Warzone. And today we're covering the second half of the tactical rifles. We already covered the DMR-14 versus the Type 63, and those two guns are incredibly dominant in Warzone at the moment. But now we're going to be moving on to the burst tactical rifles, the M16 versus the AUG. And let's just dive right into it and kick it off with damage. It turns out our base damage for both of these guns is identical at 40, and there are no body multipliers here, so you don't have to hit the upper torso to deal 40 damage. You can shoot them anywhere in the body and you'll deal the same amount of damage. Now what this means for our shots to kill to the body is without armor plates, it's going to take just 3 shots to kill, or 1 burst to kill. 2 plates will take 5, and then 3 plates, it will take you 7 shots to kill, so you have to fire 3 bursts in order to get a kill when an enemy has full health and full armor. Now, as for headshots, they're both identical here as well. They both deal 72 damage to the head, and you can see there the number of shots it takes to kill with various plates. But a big thing I want to point out is if you land just 1 headshot mixed in with body shots, it will cut it down to a 6-shot kill rather than 7 against an enemy with full health and armor, and therefore you can then kill them in just 2 bursts rather than 3. And this makes a big difference to our time to kill. As for our ranges, just like with the DMR and the Type 63, these have an infinite range. They don't drop off at all. So don't worry about attachments that decrease your range because it doesn't actually do anything to your ranges. And now let's move into our rate of fire, damage per second, and time to kill. Now, since these are burst guns, they get a little bit complicated with rate of fire. The M16 has a 909 round per minute rate of fire within each burst, but then there's a 260 millisecond delay between each one of your bursts. Then the AUG is a little bit slower within the burst at 857 RPM, but it doesn't have as much of a delay between bursts. It's only 220 milliseconds. As for our DPS, or damage per second value, keep in mind this is within each one of the bursts. This isn't factoring burst delays in, and this is why it is such a high value here. But with the M16, it's 606, and with the AUG, it's 571. And finally here, I want to have a look at our time to kill with no armor plates equipped. If we just get that 1 burst kill, these kill incredibly fast at 132 milliseconds for the M16 and 140 milliseconds for the AUG. However, when we have 3 plates equipped and we don't hit any headshots, we have to get those 7 shots to kill. It's going to take 916 milliseconds for the M16 and 860 milliseconds for the AUG. This is not a competitive time to kill at all. This is actually quite a slow time to kill for Warzone. But like I said, it is worth mentioning, if you land just 1 headshot mixed in with those body shots, then your time to kill values will be cut down quite significantly to the point where they will then be competitive. Additionally, it's worth noting that those are the values without any attachments, and of course we're going to have attachments. And the big one here that really affects these values is going to be the barrel we use, and I highly encourage you to use the titanium barrel, just like with the DMR and Type 63. This one just has so many benefits for these guns, and the first one is our rate of fire is improved pretty noticeably for both of these, and it turns out not only the rate of fire within the burst is improved, but also our burst delays are improved. And you can see here, our DPS values are very high. Our time to kill values also improve, even though it's still going to take 7 shots to kill or 3 bursts to kill. But again, just a reminder, if you mix that 1 headshot in with body shots and you're able to get a 2 burst kill, now you're going to have a very competitive time to kill value. Now, let's move on to our bullet velocity, which is a very important stat for Warzone if you're challenging people at range, and I was really surprised by these results. Without attachments, the M16 has a bullet velocity of around 600 meters per second, which is pretty much standard. That's basically exactly what I expected. However, the AUG has a painfully slow bullet velocity at 350 meters per second. This is like SMG territory when we're talking about bullet velocity, and you can see as well the bullet drop is massive without attachments here. So that is a huge downside for the AUG. However, it is worth pointing out if we are using that titanium barrel, this significantly improves our bullet velocity on both of these guns. And you can see here for the M16, our new bullet velocity is around 1050 meters per second. And with the AUG, it's 700 meters per second, which is a huge improvement, but it's still not amazing, especially considering the fact that we are using a barrel for this. So this is an area where the M16 has a huge leg up over the AUG. Now, let's get into recoil, and first up we'll have a look at the recoil with these guns with no attachments equipped at 30 meters. And as you can see here, the M16 has more vertical recoil. However, it's a much narrower pattern. It doesn't have as much horizontal recoil as the AUG. So it is a little bit of a trade-off here, but realistically speaking, human targets are generally vertical, and therefore you could argue that the M16 would be a bit better for dealing with those targets. But it really does depend on the situation. Now, like I said, that's without attachments. Now let's have a look at the recoil plots when it's stacked with all of the best attachments. I'm going to show you guys these attachment setups toward the end of the video. But again, this is at 30 meters, and you can see here a really significant improvement with both of these guns. However, if we are making the comparison here, the M16 technically does get better than the AUG when it comes to recoil if you're stacking them both with the same attachments. Now finally, just a handful of miscellaneous stats that I also wanted to cover. We've got our aim down sight time, which the M16 is better than the AUG at 300 milliseconds. The AUG's actually quite slow at 400 milliseconds. However, with sprint out time, the AUG is superior here. It's quite a bit faster than the M16 at 184 milliseconds. Our magazine capacity is equal with both of these at 30 rounds, and it's worth noting that for both of these guns, our reload add time is quite slow at just over 2 seconds. The M16 is technically a little faster than the AUG, but they're both sort of in the same ballpark. Also, just a little bonus here that I wanted to point out. If you don't use an optic attachment, with the M16 you get standard iron sights, basically exactly what you'd expect. However, with the AUG, you do get sort of a free optic out of it. This is the base optic without using any attachments. And with this, you can also hold your breath to steady your shot. Now, I don't know how practical it really is to be holding your breath to take your shot, at least in the context of Warzone. But it is something I wanted to point out because it is a clear difference between these two guns, and if you like that default optic with the AUG, you might be saving yourself an attachment on your setup. And finally, let's get into my recommended attachment combination to use for Warzone specifically on these guns. And I actually recommend the exact same attachments with both of these. Of course, if you want to make some adjustments to better suit you, that's totally fine, but I find they both perform best with the exact same attachments here. And with this, we're going to be using the agency suppressor because suppressors are really important in Warzone, and also this one helps with your bullet velocity a bit, which is always a great bonus. We've also got that titanium barrel, which, like I said, I recommend this on all of the Cold War tactical rifles in Warzone. Then for an optic, this is where it really comes down to preference. I kind of like the Cobra red dot for Warzone with these guns, but for many people, they'll like the 2X or the 3X optics, and those are totally fine as well. It's really up to you when it comes to that one. After that, we've got our airborne elastic wrap for a rear grip, just to allow us to be a little snappier to get onto target quicker. And then finally, we have the Field Agent foregrip, which significantly helps with our recoil on both of these guns. And this is the exact setup that I used for that second recoil plot, this one right here that you can see, and it makes these guns incredibly accurate, at least out to, I would say, about 50 meters or so. I would say that these guns aren't really great beyond 50 meters because even though you might hit 1 or 2 bullets within a burst, you're not likely to hit all of the bullets in your burst at that range. But if you treat these guns right and you try to mix in a headshot with body shots, you can really get a solid time to kill, and these guns are pretty decent. As for my thoughts on which one of these is better though, personally, I'm going with the M16. I think the bullet velocity really makes a big difference there, and also our recoil is a little bit better. And while I consider both of them to be very solid, the M16 just has that edge over the AUG, in my opinion. Now, I do want to quickly mention as well that neither of these guns really properly compete with the Type 63 or the DMR at this point. At the time of recording this video, at least, Warzone is in a bit of a broken state, and I don't recommend using the M16 or the AUG against people that are using DMRs, which is pretty much everybody right now. But yeah, once the DMR and the Type 63 get nerfed, I feel like the M16 and the AUG will be very viable choices for Warzone. But that is just my opinion, and I'd like to know in the comments section below. First up, what do you guys think about these Cold War burst weapons in general in Warzone? And second, out of these burst weapons, which one do you prefer, the M16 or the AUG? Now, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of this, so far I've covered, like I said, the DMR and the Type 63, and I've also covered all of the assault rifles from Cold War. I will leave a link to that playlist in the description down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.